Hello, welcome back to Collider Jedi Council. I am Kristian Harloff, a.k.a. Darth Harloff, and this is the Council. This is where we talk about everything related in the world of Star Wars. Could be the movies, the books, the whole nine. We talk about it here. We love Star Wars, and you do too. That's why you're watching. And even if you don't, maybe we'll get you to love it. On the Council today, as always, first, Mark 2D2, Mark Ellis himself. What's up, dude?
Really excited to talk about the Star Wars panel at Comic-Con that we all saw live, right? You guys weren't, you guys didn't go. I did.
And going to share in my yelling at Mark 2D2 is Obi-Wan Kenobi, John Campia. Hello, John.
Hey, guys. Good for us to be back again.
Yeah, it's good to be back because we had a little bit of a break. I mean, for those of you who didn't know, we made the switch. We're over at Collider now. Last Tuesday was the last show because we all wanted to make sure we got an episode up because we all did go to Comic-Con, and we'll be talking a lot about the stuff that happened at Comic-Con.
Yes.
Here's how the show works. We have a couple segments. This week's going to run a little different, but we start off with the Star Wars movie news. That is everything that has happened so far in the movie news in the world of Star Wars. This can be anything from the anthology films to Episode 7, Episode 8, and so on and so on. But the big news, Mark, let's start it right away. What was it?
It was the Comic-Con panel at Hall H that I ran excitedly over to the Collider meet and greet to tell John all about. And then after you were done shooting your stuff for Spike, I was like, Chris, you got to hear about all this cool stuff that happened at the panel. So basically, it was moderated by Chris Hardwick, who was the best panel moderator in the history of panel moderators. You had your Holy Triumvirate, at least one of the Holy Triumvirates of Star Wars, Kathleen Kennedy, J.J. Abrams, and Lawrence Kasdan came out first. Then they introduced some of the cast we've seen before, then some of the cast that we hadn't yet seen, and then the real Holy Trinity came out. Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher, and yes, Harrison Ford made his debut pitching a Star Wars movie at Hall H. Then afterwards, they took us all out for a cool little music concert. We'll get to that in a little bit. Kristian, there was a lot of news that came out of this, a lot of tidbits. What stuck out to you?
Well, I think they were smart. We talked about this last Tuesday. One of the things was that Entertainment Weekly report that came out right beforehand was like, they're not going to show a trailer. They're going to show behind the scenes footage, and don't expect anything except that footage and maybe a couple tidbits here and there. And then when you got it, you weren't as disappointed as you would have been going in thinking, we're going to get a full trailer. We're going to get stories about Rogue One and Han Solo. That's not what happened. But to say, what I will say is, I flubbed on Harrison Ford not showing up, I'll tell you that. But I think that once they announced that Han Solo thing, I started going, wait a minute, it's a possibility that he is going to show up. And he did, and it was great. Mark, you were there with the energy. I'm sure it was amazing when he walked out.
Oh, it was incredible. And then Harrison Ford was engaged. It wasn't just Harrison Ford showing up to wave to the crowd. He actually talked about how he responded to the themes that Lawrence Kasdan was writing for or helping create for this new trilogy. And it actually made me a little fearful for the fate of Han Solo, to be honest with you, because the way he was talking
He's
about
not coming back next
how
year.
It's a nice close to everything. And I'm like, wait. How much are we closing the book on this? He was talking about how emotionally it's a nice close to what they started so long ago, but it did make me feel like maybe this is the last time we see Han Solo on screen.
John, you've seen, I don't know if you've watched the whole panel yet, but you obviously heard a lot about it. If you did watch the panel, what did you think? What stuck out to you? And as far as being on the floor and hearing stuff about it, what did you hear?
The panel itself, the existence of the panel itself was cooler than the panel itself. Right. There were no bombs being dropped and everything like that. The big bomb, which was, I knew beyond a shadow of doubt Harrison Ford was going to be there. He was going to be at Celebration, so it only stood to reason that he was probably going to be at Comic-Con anyway, but when he had to back out of Celebration, it just re-upped the ante that they really needed him to be at Comic-Con, and I think he needed to be at Comic-Con. And so that was great that he was there to have the great trinity on stage together all at the same time is magic. That's if you're a Star Wars fan, that's all you really need. Were there any big bombs dropped? No. Were there any big reveals? No. Was there any big news that broke? No. But you didn't need it because you had Han, Luke, and Leia all on stage together, and I'm getting chills just thinking about it right now, And so, I knew they would show something. I still thought there was a chance they were going to break out, maybe not a trailer, but a scene or something like that. But they did pull out that quite lengthy kind of behind the scenes video clip that they did.
And we're going to do
the audience liked it.
Yeah, and we'll get to a full kind of breakdown of everything we saw in that. But you got a couple tidbits in there, and then one of them being Donald Gleason, who we've heard nothing about.
Right.
He is, in fact, his name is General Hux.
Hux.
And I still don't buy that he's evil, even though he said it on the panel that I'm evil. Yeah, I'm British. I'm evil. I think it's a ruse. I think he's going to wind up being like a spy. He looks too much like a Skywalker. I think that dude is a Skywalker.
Well, traditionally, correct me if I'm wrong, but traditionally, the only time I ever heard the term general in Star Wars is always referring to Rebel Alliance people. I don't recall Imperial generals.
Maybe.
No, General Veers. General Veers. There was General Veers.
General Veers.
But for the most part, usually it was General Calrissian, General Solo, General.
Yeah, and in the
Nadine.
rankings of, and especially I'm sure once they tie back into novels and stuff too, we'll hear more about generals, especially like in Aftermath and Battlefront. We'll hear more about generals on both sides. But so it just, as far as who he is, I know that was a reveal. But our own Mark Ellis actually got to ask a question to JJ, and you actually asked to the 3 new villains.
Right, yeah, because I assumed that they were all bad guys, and so I wanted to ask. I mean, I was just curious how they reacted when they found out they were cast in Star Wars as a villain, and then they were very tight-lipped about it, which is what the goal of this panel was, to just not give away anything, and Adam Driver just would not go near anything that might possibly be a spoiler. Donald Gleason, on the other hand, kind of gave away the name of his base where his general is located.
No, JJ gave that away.
Damo said Starkiller,
okay.
and then JJ kind of had to roll with it and say, yes, we can confirm that the name of the base is Starkiller. So, yeah, I mean, that's what I do.
Nice little
I go in
homage.
there and I extract information from people. I'm like a human sodium pentothal.
Well, it is a little homage because it doesn't necessarily answer questions as if Starkiller, the character, is going to come back, which I don't think he will. I think I think this pretty much says no. Where Starkiller originated from was the original name of Luke Skywalker. It was Luke Starkiller. So that's a nod. I think that's pretty cool that they're bringing it back in some way or another. But yeah, I like that came out there. But the other one was the guy right after you, who happens to be a Jedi Council fan, asked a question of whether or not Darth Plagueis will, if there was his staff, if he'll be in it. And it's funny because I got tweets, oh, JJ shot it down. I'm not necessarily buying that JJ shot it down because it took a second when you and Kasdan was jumping around. If you watch the panel, the kid asked about Darth Plagueis, and Kasdan goes, wait, who, Darth Vegas? Darth who? And JJ it takes him a second to answer it, and then finally JJ goes, no. I also remember JJ saying no when he said, is Khan in the movie? No.
Right.
Yeah, I believe him this time.
Yeah,
I do. I mean, look, but let's not put anything by JJ. But I also think JJ probably learned a lesson with Star Trek because he got a lot of heat for the fact that, I mean, he just straight out lied. There's a difference between trying to hide stuff and then flat out, straight up, bold face, eye to eye to your fans, lying to them. So there's a little bit of a different situation there. I happen to believe him. I don't think we're going to see Darth Plagueis, but I mean, this is going to be the biggest crowing feature for you if he does end up being in this movie. But I really don't think he will, and I believe JJ this time.
It's starting to go down a path to where I'm going, okay, this thing might not happen.
But still, I mean,
got faith.
You can still be inspired by stuff that's not necessarily canon, so that staff could still harken back to something else.
That's true. Plagueis is canon. It's just whether or not the character will be in another. Even if he doesn't show up in Force Awakens, I would like to see a sub-side story, even if they have Lucino do another version of it, to how that all came to be with Palpatine, because it's a fascinating story. So, okay, Mark, what's next?
Well, we mentioned the behind-the-scenes footage that we all got to see at Star Wars at the panel, and it was really, I was surprised at how emotional everybody, including myself, got watching it, because it's not like it's a new trailer, it's just bits and pieces or some interviews. You get to see a lot of new aliens, you get to see some spaceships, some wrecked spaceships. You got to see Mark Hamill being interviewed. You didn't actually get to see any behind-the-scenes footage of him being filmed as Luke Skywalker, but you did get to see that with Carrie Fisher as Princess Leia and Harrison Ford as Han Solo, with kind of an ominous, upset look on his face. So something was going wrong in Han's world. He wasn't sure about something. So my big takeaway from that was that we're going to get inundated with so many new species of aliens and so many different ships and weapons that we haven't seen before. And then we also have some of that original Star Wars feel, which we proved by seeing not only the original threesome, and then also you had Simon Pegg in there too. So you kind of got confirmed that Simon Pegg had some sort of role in a movie where he's probably going to have his face hidden.
I think we got a lot out of this, honestly. There's a lot of stuff, especially if you watched it about 163 times. But remember, we kept talking, there was a story that we've talked about on Jedi Council, was that red arm from C-3PO, and whether or not that was legit, because in the toys, well, it's legit. We don't know how he lost it, but he's got a red arm now. A few of the other ones you said, Simon Pegg, he's playing an alien. We knew he was going to play something, but it looks like he's playing some kind of alien. His head was off or whatever. And then there was that red, strange creature made some kind of noise. Who's that person? There was the kind of Jabba the Hutt type guy sitting in the back, looked like a bounty hunter with a jester type woman. I thought was very interesting. But the one that stuck out to me that I started putting theories in my head, because it was the only actual scene that I saw, was when Poe Dameron's being led down the hallway by the stormtrooper. I am convinced that stormtrooper is John Boyega. I think that stormtrooper is Finn. I think that's the beginning of the movie because he's wearing the same jacket that Finn ultimately wears later on. And you see the height of that stormtrooper. He's almost the same height as Oscar Isaac.
A little too short to be a stormtrooper.
And if you look at that original trailer, the first teaser that we ever saw, when all the stormtroopers are kind of lined up, and you had all those big stormtroopers and kind of the smaller one, I think that's Boyega too. And I think that leads into it. They're going to have some kind of head butting down the line, and then eventually team up. But that's what I got out of that. But John, you watched this thing a bunch of times too. What'd you think?
Yeah, well, it's really funny because online I was really kind of surprised when I was seeing about the panel itself. How many people were expressing like meh about the panel?
Really?
And I was like, dude, you had Luke, Han, and Leia all on the stage together. Yeah. What more did you need? Like, you don't have to have fireworks every panel. I'm like, no, man, the panel is great just because of that. The footage.
You didn't love the behind-the-scenes stuff?
Nah.
They didn't give that music. That music didn't do it for you. Wow.
Nah. To me, it was
something to thaw John's heart, please.
Yeah, it was an eclectic, random, thrown together. Here's something to make. I mean, hey, kudos to them. Look, we're not bringing a trailer. They played this because they weren't bringing a trailer. It's not like, no, instead of a trailer, let's bring this.
Right.
No. It was, we're not bringing a trailer. We better bring something. Cut something together. And they brought it, and it was all randomly out of context, random shot. Look, was it cool seeing Peter Mayhew? Yeah. Was it cool seeing this and cool seeing... Yeah, but, I mean, ultimately, it was just a random collection of things that have no coherency, and ultimately, as a Star Wars fan, didn't really do anything to get me any more excited for the movie. So I had no problem with it. I have no problem with it. I don't think it was a waste of time. I'm glad a lot of other people got stuff out of it. For me, it didn't get my blood pumping.
It was neat to see a few more things in The Force Awakens that we hadn't seen before, but overall, this entire panel, including the behind-the-scenes footage, I felt like an extension of Star Wars Celebration because it was a bunch of fans celebrating Star Wars. So we're getting excited about this. We love this stuff. We're not going to get any of that groundbreaking. I got a tweet about this immediately. I can't believe that scene I just saw kind of stuff, but it was a lot of fun. It was fun to be in a room with 6,000 other giant Star Wars fans seeing this behind-the-scenes stuff.
Now, the energy, you were at both Hall H here for this and at Celebration.
Yeah.
I would assume because of the trailer and stuff too. But pretend that the trailer didn't show at Star Wars Celebration before that trailer showed.
Right.
Was the energy crazier in Celebration, or was it crazier at Hall H?
I think it was probably a little bit crazier at Celebration simply because there was the anticipation that we were going to get a trailer. Right. So even though if you don't let me say that I saw the trailer, but I was anticipating the trailer, the Entertainment Weekly report that came out that was accurate, I think that tempered some expectations as far as what we were going to see. Having said that, there were people clapping Star Wars, and like the entire hall started doing it. So it's hard to say that which one was more anticipated. But bottom line is, when you get an arena full of Star Wars fans, they're going to be noisy and they're going to be excited.
I was just saying, to channel my inner Magneto here for a second, the other thing about Celebration was that was a more pure gene pool. I mean, at Celebration, it was all Star Wars fans who were all there specifically for Star Wars. Whereas in Hall H at Comic-Con, all Star Wars fans. Yeah. But you had a lot of people that were there for a lot of different reasons and were also able to get into Hall H. Yeah. So I can understand why
But not a lot of people that were there for Kevin Smith's panel.
No.
We'll talk about that in a sec. But what I will say to kind of go off of this here too, because this shows that because they had the big three there, and the only Andy Serkis was not there, but you had these villains with Gwendolyn Christie and Donald Gleason and Adam Driver with Kaz and then JJ and Kathleen all there. It is a fun treat for Star Wars fans nonetheless, and it shows that you're still satisfied, even though it's not that kind of, it doesn't quench your thirst the way that Celebration did. But what it also proves is they didn't show a trailer. They didn't just talk about anthology films. They didn't talk about casting. They didn't show Rogue One stuff. And they didn't ultimately need to. They were there, I think, as a kind of thank you Comic-Con because Star Wars didn't have to be there this year. And
No,
was like
no, it didn't.
It was like a thank you. They were there for thank you fans, and they did something. This makes me realize more and more. I'm not sold on the fact that we're going to get a new trailer for The Force Awakens at D23, but I think that D23 is going to give us some nice stuff.
I have said for a long time, D23 is not going to focus on Star Wars stuff because Disney had Celebration, and they're just coming off of Comic-Con, and they're going to use D23 to focus a lot more on all their other stuff that Disney is working on. However, you're right. The very fact that at Comic-Con they didn't drop any bombs, they didn't talk Rogue One, they didn't talk any of the other anthologies, they didn't talk Han Solo, they didn't talk Episode 8, they didn't do any of that stuff, that all goes right in the face of my theory that they're not going to really do much stuff at D23, and now it leads me to believe they were holding it all back for something.
Right.
And it wasn't just for some random Wednesday in the middle of the month. It was probably for D23.
Yeah.
And now suddenly I'm interested in D23
Yeah,
because I wasn't before, but now I am.
But that's the point. That's the point right there, is because they don't show this stuff. And then if you drop news of, I don't know, let's say we're going to talk about a rumored director for Episode 9. If you announce that director, if you show a teaser for Rogue One, anything, you talk about a con that needs a little bit of a boost, done. That's it. People are going to be talking about it.
And that's the last one before a new Star Wars movie comes out, right?
Doesn't New York Comic Con.
There's New York Comic Con, but I mean, I don't know that Star Wars is going to take
Probably
a huge
not.
presentation
Probably
there.
not.
D23, I think they'll probably show a slate at D23.
I see. I'm not so sure. I'm not saying I disagree with you, but I'm not as sure as you because New York Comic Con, the past 3 years especially, New York Comic Con has been growing and growing, and bigger presentations have been starting
More
to happen
space there too, right?
And more. I'm not so sure about more space, but I do know that, whereas all the big presentations were always at San Diego Comic Con, bigger and bigger properties have been going to New York, and because New York would be the final big convention before a Star Wars release date, I can't help but wonder that maybe they will hold something back.
Well,
for
and
New York.
let's also throw this out there real quick, is that two pieces of information that JJ gave away that I think got lost in the shuffle is that they do have a final working cut of the movie as of right now that they're working on. They have the movie cut. Now you just got to, trim it up and put all the effects in. Yeah. Also, he said that they don't have a trailer ready, that they're going to release the last trailer in the fall. Now, whether that drops the same time as New York Comic Con, if they have an event that says, come watch it in this huge theater the same time we release it online, that's totally plausible.
It is and it isn't. Just that the fact, I mean, to not a full trailer, you usually get a full trailer for what the story is going to be at least 3-4 months in advance. Like,
final trailer?
Not final.
Right.
A full trailer that gives you the story. Like we got the first Avengers kind of full trailer of what it was about. I mean, I think it was in like February or something when it came out, and the movie came out in May. I still think August you have a good chance, but I would say most likely September is when you're going to get that trailer.
To be honest, though, I mean, the Avengers, we knew what that was going to be about. Like there's more of a mystery surrounding exactly what the plot of The Force Awakens is.
But it's still marketing in general with Disney, who's the same marketing team. They've done that with all their movies. I just used Avengers as the example, but I would assume that they want to give a little bit more. No, do you need it? Could you release Star Wars and not put anything else and probably the same amount of numbers that you're going to do for it without any more advertising? Probably.
No, I don't think so. But I think Star Wars is a little bit different of a beast in the sense that, look, you still have to market this thing. Like we who live in the Star Wars fandom world, and look, there are a lot of Star Wars fans in the world, but we're not everybody.
Right.
So we sometimes underplay the need for Disney to market Star Wars. You do. But do they have to market it a certain way? Not necessarily. J.J. Abrams is the type of filmmaker who does like to keep back a lot of the details on his films and things like that. So, look, I'm not saying they're not going to do it at all. But I think you can put out a Star Wars trailer that shows action, iconic characters, explosions, the iconic music and stuff like that, and have as much of an impact and an effect on our culture, and for those of us who may be going to go see the movie, then if you put out a more traditional trailer about 3 months out that says, okay, now folks, here is our basic plot structure here. This is what this movie's about. You don't necessarily have to do that trailer for a Star Wars film.
I know, but I especially the reason why I think it's going to be September, and it's going to play into what we talk about later on. The journey to the Force Awakens stuff happens in September. And I'm talking what that is, if you guys aren't familiar. This is when all the books, the games, all the stuff starts to roll out for the journey to the Force Awakens. what is more of a journey to The Force Awakens than the trailer of what the movie's about. Playing into, once they set up, because we'll talk about Aftermath in a little bit here, when they set up what happened after Jedi and how it starts to shape a bit, because you're going to start to get story bits, even though, granted, it's going to be years before.
It'll be backstory.
Yeah, it'll be backstory. You're going to start to get a little bit of a shape of what that universe is like now. Once you get that, and once you start, even if you don't read this stuff, if you're hearing about it and reading it on blogs and stuff too, you're going to start to understand, oh, this is what's happening with the rebellion and the Empire now. Oh, okay. And then the trailer drops. That makes sense to me. That makes sense that, okay, that's what so the more and more I hear myself even say it, I would probably say September, and off of JJ saying the fall, I would say September is probably when we're going to get this trailer.
I would tend to agree with you. I don't think it's hard to hold that trailer all the way until October when New York Comic Con happens.
All right, what's next?
Well, capping off the panel was them announcing that, hey, everybody in Hall H right now, we're going to treat you guys to a Star Wars music concert, and complete with free lightsabers if you hung out long enough, fireworks at the end, a taped introduction from Mr. John Williams himself. It was an exciting thing to be a part of, if I was a part of it, because I was walking out and they gave me one of my badges, and some nice lady was asking me, hey, where's everybody going? I was like, oh, they gave us this music concert, and she was in Hall H. So
was that nice lady Kevin Smith dressed up as a lady?
It was not. I don't think she would have been as nice, but I gave her my badge, and she went. I'm sure had a great time because there were fireworks at the end of it. And what this proves to me is that whether they have a cool piece of new footage or a trailer to show, Star Wars always wants to end their panels big. What did they do the last day of Celebration? They shocked us with that 15-second anthology thing.
Right.
And then what did they do this time? They didn't have anything that was really going to blow our minds. So like, you know what? Let's just all go rock out across the street. So D23, this is why it gives me hope that they're going to do something big.
Yeah.
I don't know which movie it's going to be regarding to, but something big.
I thought it was fun that they did this, and I had kind of heard wind of it like the night before, and I was like, well, I actually thought John Williams was going to be there. I thought that would have been something.
Oh my God,
that would have been amazing.
Special.
But the fact that he wasn't, it really didn't matter, because it was, like you said, it was a nice treat for the fans. Is it something that was gonna blow everybody away who heard about it? No, but it's a memory that those people that were there will have forever.
Right.
Especially if you're a Star Wars fan, to be able to those fireworks and to see those things going off in the sky, and you know that there's some kid who's there listening to the music and maybe just watched the movie recently and looking up into the stars, hearing the music. That's special. I mean, that was really nice that they did that. So I was all for it. I thought it was cool.
I was as the Star Wars panel was wrapping up, I was actually at the Movie Talk meet and greet down there. And thank you once again to all you guys who came down to the meet and greet. It was a thrill meeting all of you. And so Mark gets out of that thing, comes running across, and I get a text from our rep at Disney, the Disney rep. It says, hey, John, we're going to be doing a Star Wars concert. As soon as the panel's over, when are you coming over? Now, unfortunately, my most anticipated UFC fights of the year were that night. And you have to also understand this about me. Until this past year, because I was out of town, for the past 4 years in a row, my wife and I go to the Hollywood Bowl every year for John Williams in concert. And we watch the music of John Williams with John Williams conducting, and it is always spectacular. It's always fantastic. And I tweeted back to him, or I wrote back to him, I texted back to him, I said, is Williams conducting? He said, no, Williams not conducting. It's like, UFC fights, a concert I've seen several times with John Williams doing it, and now it's UFC fights. So I went and watched the UFC fights, but I could, as I'm walking down the streets of San Diego, I could see the fireworks going off, and I'm like, man, they really went all out, and I can only imagine how much fun it must have been to be there.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and it was really nice for them to do it. But, all right, Mark, what's next?
Well, one piece of news that we thought we might possibly get, according to our buddy El Mambe, is that Colin Trevorrow would be directing Episode 9. Now, that's still a rumor, but it was neither confirmed nor even brought up at the panel. Could that be something we get at D23? Kristian, what's your take on the rumor thus far that Trevorrow, the director of Jurassic World, could be taking on another big franchise?
I'm torn on it, because the first thing is we got a chance to actually speak to Colin not too long ago, and he brings up Star Wars in everything that he talks about. He's always talking about Star Wars, and I asked him, I'm like, hey, so you're gonna do Star Wars soon? He's saying, of course he's not gonna answer it, but. It would make sense that, of course, they're going to take a meeting with the guy. The guy has one of the highest-grossing films of all time. He's worked with Spielberg, who understands these types of world before. He's proven that going from a small movie over to a big franchise for him he did it. He was able to do it. He did it smoothly, and it worked. And I had a lot of fun with Jurassic World. I know some people had issues with it, but for what it was, I enjoyed it very much. I don't know how much of a Star Wars fan he is overall. He says he's a big Star Wars fan. I tend to believe him. I don't know how I feel about him directing Episode 9 because I haven't seen 7 and 8 yet, and I don't know if I want to see the style, because he's going to the daunting task that both Rian Johnson and then whether it be Colin Trevorrow, whoever it is, has to follow now what J.J. Abrams sets up. J.J. Abrams has the luxury, if you will, of saying, even though it's, again, a daunting task, he's able to create the brand new feel of going away from the prequels and going into Star Wars again, basing a lot off the original trilogy, but he's able to say this is what Star Wars is going to be again. He's the one who's doing that. These guys can't do that. They can, of course, bring their own take to it, but they have to follow what JJ does, because anything that JJ does with the new mythology and tones and setup, like if they start going to more heavy on the CGI and don't do practical locations and stuff like that, you're gonna see it right away. Not that they will do that, but I'm just making an example. So I don't know yet with Trevorrow. I think it'd be cool, but I actually don't necessarily know if it's even true. I think he's a handful of directors who's probably taking meetings. But John, am I wrong?
I am apprehensive.
Yeah.
I don't dislike the notion of it. Look, Safety Not Guaranteed. Very nice little film. A very nice little film. Jurassic World. I was really curious to see what that guy would do there. And you know what? Jurassic World is also a very nice film. But I didn't love Jurassic World.
Right.
I liked it. I mean, I had a good time with it. I had fun. All I could expect, nowhere near as good as the original Jurassic Park, but better than any of the other films that came after it. So having this guy now announced, oh, by the way, he's going to do Episode 9.
The closing movie of the trilogy.
Of a new trilogy. And I'm like, really? Him? I mean, I'm curious, but look, remember, we all had that same reaction when they said, hey, these guys, the Russo brothers, are going to direct Captain America Winter Soldier. And we all went, what? Or Peyton Reed's directing Ant-Man. Peyton Reed? Really? And we saw how those two, well, a lot of you guys, you will see how Ant-Man turned out. We liked it. But so I said, I like what he's done so far, but I haven't been wowed by him yet.
Right.
And so I was hoping, look, I'm still one of these romantics that I've been holding out hope that Steven Spielberg's name would drop. I really am. I'm still that romantic dude who I've been holding out hope that at some point Steven Spielberg was going to direct a Star Wars film. And so I'm a little bit disappointed there wasn't a sexier name. Now remember, this isn't confirmed.
Right.
It may not be
we don't know
Colin
yet.
Trevorrow.
We'll find out at D23.
If it is, I'm a little disappointed right now, but totally open-minded. Totally open-minded to see what he does. But if you want my honest initial reaction, it's probably a little bit disappointed.
Mark?
There's another hotshot filmmaker out there called J.J. Abrams, I think is his name. That'd be kind of cool if he did Episode 9, because like you said, he started
Let's
this
see if
new
7's any good
field.
first.
Right.
And so 7's going to be, 7 is at least going to be establishing, I think that everything that they've done with this movie so far is so note perfect as far as marketing goes. Even if it isn't the greatest film of all time, I think J.J. has such a vision that I hope that him and Rian Johnson are in constant communication. Then I hope that whoever takes over from Episode 8 to Episode 9 can get that same feel, which is why I think you guys are right. They're taking a lot of meetings with every director on the face of the planet that has any notoriety. So whether it's going to be him or they're talking to Favreau, they're just waiting for somebody to really impress them. But then they're also going to impose their will on whatever director, more so than a director of a standalone anthology film. So you have to be accepting of that.
I agree with you. And it's funny you bring up Favreau. Now, let's spin this a little bit, too, because if you told me Colin Trevorrow was doing an anthology movie, I'm on board.
Right.
It's not that I'm not on board with 9, but
Me too. That's a good point.
I think I'd rather him do an anthology first. The same thing goes with Steven Spielberg for me, though, John. Like, I think I'd rather see Spielberg do an anthology film to where he can explore and do whatever he wants in the world of Star Wars. I would love to see Steven Spielberg start the Old Republic trilogy, to be honest with you. I would like to see Favreau, who I originally have been calling to do the anthology film and has been rumored to do the anthology film. I wouldn't mind him doing Episode 9. I think because he's got a little bit more of a proven track record. I think that he is a Star Wars fan. He's got a good relationship with Lucasfilm too. I believe he's friends with J.J. Abrams. I think. So he's got that relationship. That'd be interesting to me. I'm curious, but I wouldn't be upset if Trevorrow. I'd be curious.
Right, and what he did with Jurassic World is he proved he can play nice in somebody else's ballpark, because he didn't get rid of any of the lore of the original Jurassic Park. He just added on to it. He went over some of the same steps as the first film, but he took somebody else's property and he played within that sandbox, which is an impressive feat that I don't think every director can do or even necessarily wants to do. So
All right, what's next?
Well, we're talking about JJ and how he's setting up this new universe for The Force Awakens. The production designer of the film, one of the production designers, Darren Guilford, was discussing keeping the feel of the original trilogy, which was created by that man, George Lucas.
I think we missed
who's going to be honored at Disney Expo. D23 is going to be honoring the legend, George Lucas. This August.
And I think the production designer will be there in attendance.
Yes, the production designer is creating the feel on stage of welcoming George. There's going to be a nice couch. There's going to be a couple microphones plugged in so he can talk to everybody. It's going to be a real exciting thing for that many people to hear, unlike the days of Rome. Yes, George Lucas is going to be one of the legends that will be honored at D23, which is neat because he's George Lucas, and sometimes he doesn't get enough credit for actually being the guy that created Star Wars. People love to crap on the prequels without giving the proper love for doing what he did, which is make up this entire universe. So it's pretty cool that they're doing this.
It is cool. I mean, it's nice that he's honored now too, and it's funny because I've always said this. One of the best things, like a lot of people still give George crap for the prequels and everything too, and I've long. I'm forgotten. They're forgotten.
They're forgotten.
And I'll tell you why. Because I understand that there are fans out there who love it. Okay. I also understand, and I also understand that there are fans out there who hate it. And I certainly don't love them. But what I will say about them is that they have spawned new things. They've spawned a new, the Clone Wars and these novels, and ultimately what it landed to. Regardless of why he did it, whether it be the money, whatever it was, ultimately he decided that this franchise, this property would be better off in someone else's hands. So ultimately, if it's not for George Lucas making that decision to sit down with Bob Iger when Bob Iger said, hey, so let me buy your company for you, and him going, okay, and putting Kathleen Kennedy in the head seat, understanding that it was time for other fans of the property to do, it's him. The reason we have these characters, it's him. You have to honor him. He is the god of Star Wars. We've all taken cracks at him. We've all been upset with the no's and all the silliness that he's done. But you cannot show anything except love for this man for what he has given us. We're not sitting here without George Lucas. So do you honor?
You don't
him?
have a show without George Lucas.
No, of course you have to honor the man. He's one of the most brilliant creators and storytellers of all time. You honor him.
You absolutely do.
Right.
Look, you don't have to be a fan of something doesn't mean you have to stick your head in the sand. Did George Lucas crap the bed with the prequels? Sure. But Michael Jordan heaved up his share of air balls too. That doesn't take away, just because Michael Jordan heaves up an air ball, that doesn't take away his 6 rings. That doesn't take away everything that he accomplished. George Lucas is one of the greatest filmmakers we've ever had. He's given us not just Star Wars, he's given us 2 of the greatest franchises in film history with the Indiana Jones franchise, with Star Wars. What he was able to not just create, but his innovation. He is a force of nature that has pushed, force of nature that has pushed the film industry forward for the past 30 years. When it comes to terms of sound design, when you think about what he's did with visual effects, when you think about what he's done with digital filmmaking and all that kind of stuff, this guy is an icon. Yeah, everybody knows I hate the prequels, but who cares? That's one bad day at the office. There's an altar. No, I see it as one thing, the prequels, just one bad thing. But look, when I ultimately build my dream house, there will be a room that has a shrine of George Lucas that I will come and sprinkle ash and pay homage to every day because he's that important to the business. He's that important to our pop culture. And he was, yes, that damn good. So yeah, he deserves this.
But there's a risk here, guys. There's a risk here. And I'll tell you what the risk is. Is that if the real George Lucas runs into the cosplay George Lucas that has been known to hang out outside the Anaheim Convention Center. This guy, he dresses in that checkered George Lucas shirt, and he walks around with signs that says Greedo shot first, or like I love Jar Jar. So if they butt heads, then it's going to be an interesting thing to get on your phone.
I'd love to see those two take a picture together. All right, Mark, what's next?
Well, let's talk about production designer Darren Guilford.
Deja vu.
What he was discussing, he's one of the guys who's working on The Force Awakens, and he was talking about how much they wanted to keep the feel of the original trilogy, so much so that he was retelling a story that J.J. Abrams wanted to get as much knowledge as he can about how they shot the film in 1977, the original Star Wars, and wanting to maintain as much of that as he possibly could. So, Kristian, this seems to be going along with everything we've heard about this movie, is that you want to create this lived-in universe, and the production design now backs that up.
Yeah, it just goes back to what we were just talking about as far as what J.J. is setting up and what he's doing and showing the love. And even hear him talking about it on the panel with the way he was going to approach us as a fan and how excited he was just to sit down and be like, Lauren, I'm writing with Lawrence Kasdan? This is amazing. And now talking to production designers and doing everything that came before him. And this is what not only I hope the other filmmakers will do in 8 and 9, but in the anthology films, it needs to happen. This is the way he sets us up with talking to these people and the designer and setting up this world to look like this. It has to look like this in everything else that we do in the Star Wars universe. From what JJ sets here, it has to stop the shortcuts. No more shortcuts to like what Peter Jackson did with The Hobbit, to where he's like, nah, I'm just going to make all the orcs now are just going to be CGI. Nope. Stick to the standard now that JJ sets with getting guys like this to set this world up, and we're in good shape. John?
It's a matter of, you can do a lot of very easy things to make a movie sound like Star Wars, the type of dialogue, make it look like Star Wars. But there's a couple of key things you need to do in order for it to feel like Star Wars. And the two key things are, number one, you had to get John Williams back to score the first one. Not that it would have been impossible had Williams not been able to return, but that goes a long way. But the second thing is understanding the aesthetic of the world. And by bringing in the production designer from that original trilogy, this is going to, for good or for bad, we still don't know if the movie's going to be great, awesome, terrible, whatever, but I believe they've taken all the right steps to make sure this feels like Star Wars. We're going to get that sense of the lived-in universe, the used universe. Right. We're going to hear that iconic score and sound, and then almost regardless of what then transpires on screen, when we're in that audience and we're in that theater, it's going to feel like we're in a Star Wars movie, and that, according to G.I. Joe, is half the battle. And I'm really excited about it.
I mean, just watch the first teaser that we got to The Force Awakens before you even saw John Boyega's head pop up. That's all you need to look at. They got this thing right. They nailed the production design. That looked like a Star Wars planet. I thought it was Tatooine at the time. Right. Might end up being Jakku, but that's what Star Wars looks like. It's not a CGI background. It's real stuff. They're going to great lengths, and they're getting a lot of frequent flyer miles to make sure that they get this production right. They're going to nail. The movie might not be great, but that part of it is going to be spot on.
All right, last one for the Star Wars news.
Well, apparently stormtroopers do not drink martinis because Daniel Craig will not be a stormtrooper in The Force Awakens, or will he? We don't really know what's happening because this whole thing started when Daniel Craig was spotted at Pinewood Studios around the same time they were shooting The Force Awakens, but that was attributed to him doing some Bond stuff at the same studio. And then Simon Pegg started teasing that Daniel Craig is going to be an extra in the movie playing a stormtrooper. And then Daniel Craig, most recently, he told Entertainment Weekly that Simon Pegg he's like, why would I be an extra in somebody else's movie? That's ridiculous. So now it's this whole thing, Kristian. Will Benedict Cumberbatch be an extra? Will Simon Pegg be an extra? Will Daniel Craig be in this movie? What's the answer?
Cumberbatch, no. Pegg, we know, yes.
Yeah.
Daniel Craig, yes. I think he's going to. Will we ever know? Who knows? But we'll probably learn later on. But I think that him and Simon Pegg have a pretty fun relationship, and I think the fact he's like, oh, me playing an extra? Why would I do that? It sounds kind of douchey unless he's really in it. So I think that he's going to wind up being in it. Small, because it's one of those things that it's Star Wars. He's friends with JJ. He was there. Why not? I think it'll happen.
I don't think it will, but I don't think it's beyond the realm of possibility. Yeah. I think, but I do. It's always funny though when I hear when a movie is shooting on a certain location, it's like another celebrity was seen in that same city. They must be in the same. Because I remember who's the wrestler, Ray, the redhead Celtic.
Oh yeah.
Sheamus.
As Darth Vader.
Yes.
But he's played Vader before, though.
Right. But still, this whole sense, because a picture was taken of him being in the same 18 square mile radius of a place that, therefore, he might, and then some people took this wild thing that he's going to be Vader then, and who knows, maybe it will. It's just this, ultimately, what it comes down to is this. Will Daniel Craig be a stormtrooper? Who cares? Right. It won't make any difference to the movie whatsoever.
No, but it's fun. But it's a fun kind of Easter egg, though.
I'm a big Daniel Craig fan, and I don't think that's fun.
Yeah,
I think for him it would be. Daniel Craig is a big Daniel Craig fan too, and I think that this is going to be the last thing that he wants to talk about before Bond. Like they're promoting Bond that comes out a month before this movie, so he's going to get sick of this question. So if this is a strategy to be just fun and playful, it's like shut up. I want to talk about Spectre, or I don't want to talk about this extra gig that I booked, you know?
All right, that's it. Those are all the movie stories. Again, I shouldn't say that's it. There were a lot of them this week, and there's going to be a lot on our next segment. But I just want to let everybody know there's not going to have any Twitter questions today or address the council because we have so much to cover. But we got through the movie section. Now it's that time. I know a lot of you guys love it. It's What's the Deal with Canon? That's all the stuff happening in the world of Star Wars. This is the books, the comics, the video games, anything that ultimately ties back into the movies. We will talk about it. There's a lot of stuff that happened. And Mark, what's the first one up?
Huge shout out to StarWars7News.com, by the way, who helps us gather all of the Star Wars news, both movies and canon stories. The first story we're talking about in canon is a story that they got from comicbook.com, that there's going to be a crossover in the comics, and it's going to see Darth Vader forced to face the entire might of the Rebel Alliance after he crash lands on a planet. And so it's going to be basically the Vader and the Star Wars comics are crossing over their storylines. It's always cool when comic books try to do this. How excited is one Kristian Harlow?
I'm pretty excited. I mean, I wouldn't say it's a huge surprise because they've been kind of teasing this throughout the Vader and Star Wars comic anyway right now. Like there's certain scenes that have popped up in both. You know, he's been working with Boba Fett and the Vader, and then there was the line that happened through Boba Fett and Luke Skywalker in the Star Wars comic. I think that'll be some ultimate ties from the Obi-Wan Kenobi angle that ties into his story with Vader. So I think this makes sense. I'm glad that they're doing it. I'm reading them anyway, so if it furthers the story along, that's great, because what Star Wars the comic will do is be able to focus on these characters, whether it be Obi-Wan Kenobi and Vader. It makes sense. Vader has his own line right now, but there should be an angle in Star Wars the comic that focuses just on Vader. So I dig it. Mark?
I mean, yeah, it sounds like it's natural. It almost sounds like it doesn't even need to be the publicity stunt that they're making it out to be, because, of course, these characters, have you not seen the movies? Their storylines cross over occasionally, so why wouldn't
Especially in this time period.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, it does sound cool. The title, Star Wars Vader Down, I'm not huge on, but, you know, is that what he says? Is that like the code name? Like
Vader down, Vader down.
Vader down, Vader down.
Yeah.
Like he refers to himself in the third person. I don't know.
Black Hawk
Piper down.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you have Han, Luke, Leia, and Chewie, and they're all like, "Oh, we got a really good opportunity to go get rid of Darth Vader. We're going to take advantage of that." That's a story that I want to see, so I'd be excited.
Sounds a little bit like Lords of the Sith.
It does.
No, it makes sense. This makes sense. Now, I'm a little bit checked out of the comics myself, but as far as the storylines go and things like that, I think as a plot device, this totally makes sense. It's probably the right direction for them to go.
All right, what's next?
Everybody's favorite walking carpet is getting his own comic. Starting in October, there's going to be a Chewbacca comic. Ladies and gentlemen, Kristian, does Chewbacca need his own comic?
I don't know yet. I don't know yet, because what I did like, what I read was, I like the art, by the way, but what I did like was that they said the author said that they were not going to subtitle him. That it'll be everyone else kind of talking and understanding him the way that we know Chewbacca to be. I don't know where it's going to go. I didn't like the Leia line. It was like, what, five issues and maybe 6. I don't remember what it was, but didn't love it. So I'm curious to see where and I don't know. I didn't think it's necessarily said what timeline this takes place, right? Is it before he meets Han? Is it after he meets Han? And I don't understand. So
he's on an important mission when we first meet him, but it just seems like he's marooned on a planet, and so he's at a crossroads. But I'm not sure. I know that the Empire is going to factor into the story somehow. Okay, so the Empire's already into power.
Well, that would make sense, because I mean he had an arc in the Clone Wars TV series for a little bit, so we know that he's been fighting for a while. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see when he gets captured. I'm interested. The first issue is going to let me know if I like it or not. John?
No
way, huh? I get it. I understand.
But you know but at the same time, a title like Chewbacca is one of these little things that you would look at and dismiss immediately, like what I just did, right? And it could end up being, the
just really well written,
usual suspects of this whole comic line. This could end up being the masterpiece of all of it. Yeah. So keep your eye open for it.
Yeah, I'm curious. All right, Mark, what's next?
Issue number 1 of Lando is out, and at least one person on this panel has checked it out. That person is not me.
Or John.
Or me.
I read it, and I really liked it.
You were looking forward to this. This was one of your most anticipated, right?
No. I would say I was pretty curious about it, because I liked Lando, and I liked what they're doing so far. The story team with him is they've been setting up Lando. They've been setting him up, and they throw him in there with Rebels, and he's been great on Rebels so far.
Yeah, he has.
This takes place right before he gets control of Bespin in Cloud City, so it feels one of the things we've talked about so many times, John, is like when when someone is writing Star Wars who's trying to write Star Wars, or when it's just Star Wars. Yeah. This is just Star Wars. Like Lando, it opens up and he's in bed with an Imperial woman, and she's just like, and he's kind of playing her. He's playing her about, and there's something she has that he needs, and it's just classic Lando. But then. What's help me out here? His boy with the oh man.
Yeah, I know who you're talking about. The guy with the Beats headphones. Yeah.
They have a relation. He doesn't say a word in Empire. That guy, right? They have this back and forth buddy thing that at first I'm going, I was talking to our friend Ken Knapsack, who was also saying the same thing. And we're like, I don't know, but they have this back and forth. And they're like, well, maybe they work together. They have this mission that they have to go on. And if you're a fan of Lando Calrissian and you want to understand his place in the overall galaxy, so far this comic is doing it. So I would recommend at least picking up issue 1, and we'll see where it goes from there.
What's really interesting is like the only time you really see Lando communicating with that dude is sometimes they're face to face. He'll say something, but he communicates to him also with that thing.
Right.
I would like to see for one day you two guys in the office
talking on that,
and you can't talk. And the only way you're allowed to communicate to him is by text message. Even if you're standing right beside him the whole time, you just have to text message.
I just felt so bad for that guy because the thing was connected to his head, right?
Yes.
So if he's just trying to get a good night's sleep, he's like, finally, honey, I do not want to talk about it. Cracks open a beer. Bling, 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 bling. Oh, God. What now?
Was it a Colt 45?
All right, Mark, what's next?
D23 is back in the news because there's going to be a huge video game presentation, partially which is going to focus on Star Wars video games the last day on August 16th in their big hall, which means you're going to get a lot of big stuff on the screen and some great sound effects. One of the games, Kristian, is Star Wars Battlefront. So are you excited because they're putting such a pedestal on the video game aspect of the Star Wars universe?
Yeah, and I think that it leads into not just the journey to Force Awakens, but you're going to get that heavier push for video games. Once the battle, almost like what we talked about a year and a half ago, is once the news for Star Wars started to come out with cast and everything too, it was this steady flow. It was this, and the floodgates are going to be open, and now they are. We're in the middle of it. I think the same is the case with the video games. Once that first game, the big push is Battlefront. They got to get Battlefront out there. No, it doesn't fit into the canon and the storyline, but it's the first big video game that's going to be for Lucasfilm and Disney, so they want it to succeed, obviously. And I think by doing it at this event, at D23, and showing more of it, maybe some more gameplay, great. For me right now, the game I'm looking forward to the most is Uprising. And I'm reading more now that I know it's an RPG and be able to do more with Uprising, that it takes place in that time period. Maybe we'll hear a little bit more about that at D23 as well. I don't know. Maybe we'll finally hear some stuff, that the Visceral game that's supposed to come out, that's supposed to be, whether it's Boba Fett or Han Solo, in the vein of the Uncharted. So I'd like to hear more about it at D23. It makes sense to me.
Well, here's the thing. This is what's starting to become apparent to me at any rate. Maybe some other people are noticing this too. Unlike other movies and movie franchises and movie studios who try to get out there with marketing or whatever to really dominate the attention of the movie-going demographic, Star Wars is uniquely positioned where they don't... What is becoming apparent to me, they're not just trying to capture the narrative with the movie-going demographic. They are trying to saturate our culture. Yeah. They are. It's like almost like, terraforming another planet just so we can go over there and occupy it. I feel like Star Wars is Lucasfilm and Disney. They're putting so much effort behind pushing this Battlefront game, which, I'll be honest, on its surface, doesn't look like all that great of a game, but I'm dying to play it because it's Star Wars, so I'm dying to play it anyway. But they're putting so much weight behind this, and a lot more weight behind their novelizations than you think they would, and more weight behind their comic push than you think that they would, that it feels to me like they are trying to terraform our cultural fabric right now to prepare it all for Episode 7 coming. It's like they're not just trying to dominate the box office, they're trying to become the lead talking point of any conversation around any water cooler anywhere. And damn it if they're not succeeding. Yeah. They really are.
Yeah. So you're saying they're the Empire.
They essentially are the Empire, yes.
Well, if they're the Empire, then call me a stormtrooper because I can't wait to see this presentation. Battlefront looks awesome to me. And the way that, even though I'm not a huge gamer, I love seeing the way that the battles look. I love the scope of it. I love all the different planets you can go to. I love that it feels like you're in this universe, and that just the realistic feel that I got when I saw that first trailer. I was like, this is so what I want to see from Star Wars, because everything Star Star Wars does is top quality. You don't want to get a dud, whether it's a movie or a game. You want it to be the best video game of that year. And I think Battlefront has a chance to be that. I think it's obviously going to make a lot of money, but it looks like something really, really fun to play.
Yeah, I agree. All right, Mark, what's next?
Well, John was just talking about how the books have also making a great push. The Journey to the Force Awakens officially kicks off in September, and we have a new unveiling of some of the titles and the synopsis of these books, headlined by, obviously, Aftermath is the first one to come out, and then other titles include Lost Stars and The Weapon of a Jedi. So, Kristian, you see all this, you see all the synopses. Which ones of these are you most excited about, or which ones do you think are most going to tie in directly with The Force Awakens?
Oh, it's no question that it's Aftermath. I mean, Aftermath is, and they also announced at Comic-Con that Chuck Wendig, who is writing Aftermath, is actually writing the trilogy of books that will play into the Aftermath trilogy, which I think is smart. This Lost Stars thing I'm pretty interested in. We'll talk about more about Aftermath because I actually put out an excerpt of Aftermath and a little bit more of the synopsis of what it's about. But Lost Stars is kind of like a Romeo and Juliet to where there was a guy from the rebellion who fell in love with an Imperial.
It starts with Lando in bed with an Imperial woman.
An Imperial woman, right.
I'm sorry I arrived just before you did.
That was good. That was good. Weapon of Jedi, Moving Target, Smuggler's Run, all interesting. It's interesting to me that it's Journeys to the Force Awakens books, the three of those, because those three books actually take place in the time period of episode 4 and 5. So things happen in those books that are going to impact those characters in episode 7. So that's interesting to me. So those are the ones in Shattered Empire, of course, the comic book. But I'll talk about Aftermath in a little bit. But John, obviously, I think Aftermath's the one you're looking forward to as well. Anything else?
Oh, heavens, yes. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I'm looking at Weapon of a Jedi, Moving Target, Smuggler's Run. I'm curious about them, I guess. It's Aftermath and it's Shattered Empire for me. Those are the ones that really have my attention. Now, of course, Star Wars Ships of the Galaxy, that's going to be a page turner. But no, it's Aftermath and it's Shattered Empire. These are the ones that I'm really looking forward to see.
Right.
And especially after I'm going to stop harping on Lords of the Sith. But
You like it?
I like it a lot. So I'm really looking forward to those two.
Yeah, more?
I'm going to take my concerns. I had all these concerns when they announced The Force Awakens and all this new stuff and all this canon is all going to tie into this universe. And I put those on the shelf for a while. I'm just going to take those off the shelf. And I'm just going to open it up just a little bit because
Too much?
I love you guys. I'm not reading all this stuff. I might not read any of this stuff.
So
the panic that I have as a Star Wars fan is that in The Force Awakens, I'm going to miss something because I didn't put in the effort to win Battle of the Books this year. And I get because even though some of these titles take place a lot earlier than even Return of the Jedi, it all is going to tie into The Force Awakens. So when you're reading it, you're going to see something, you're like, oh, I wonder if that's an Easter egg or if they're going to call that back. I'm sure The Force Awakens, the movie, is what takes priority. Yeah. And it's there to entertain us, and then this can all supplement that entertainment. But it does just make me a little bit nervous that we're going to be sitting in that screening, and you guys who read the books are going to be way up here on Cloud 9. Like, I can't believe they did that. And I'm going to be down here like, hey, wait, is he working with him, or is he on the other side of it?
I don't think you'll get lost that way. I think there will be that thing to where, let's say John and I read all of them, and then we look and go, oh, yeah, and we talk about afterwards. Remember they brought that up in the book? Yeah. That's cool. Because there's something actually in Aftermath that I'll bring up that's similar to that. But I don't think you'll be lost at all, dude. I really don't. And I think
if it's a name of a ship, I'll be cool.
Yeah, you know? But it's even little tidbits of learning backstory and history. At the end, like, oh, did you know this? I'm like, oh, that's cool. I'm glad that I knew that, but it didn't take away from the experience.
Again, it's a tiny fear that I have in everything they've done so far, and I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan anyway, so I think I can hang.
I think it's what Kristian is pointing out is completely accurate. I don't think any of this stuff is going to be essential reading to go into. Like, we get a lot of tweets from people saying, hey, John, do I need to read Lords of the Sith? Do I need to read Tarkin? Am I going to understand what's... Yeah, none of this stuff is going to be essential reading. None of it. I'm excited about Aftermath, not because, now I'll be able to understand what's going on in Episode 7. No, I'm excited about Aftermath just because I think it is going to be a self-contained, really great story. I'm excited about Shattered Empire because I think it looks like a great story. And like Kristian was pointing out, I'm sure there are going to be points in Episode 7, in Rogue One, in Episode 8 that will go, oh yeah, remember that in Moving Target, they kind of mentioned that, but it won't mean there's anything's going to be lost.
You
on
won't be
else.
lost. And the thing, as far as Aftermath goes, I think what's special about Aftermath, and from what I'm hearing, is that Aftermath even over Lords of the Sith and everything else, Aftermath already hasn't even come out yet. Is the highest selling as far as pre-orders. The way people want to know what happened after Jedi. People want to know, even though the other ones have done really well. But Aftermath, people really want to understand. And what we've learned, they announced the story of Aftermath at Comic-Con, and a lot has to do with Wedge Antilles. And the other thing that...
Guy's a hero.
Yeah,
the guy's an absolute hero.
Yeah, and he gets captured. But what they did, by the way, they released a little excerpt on Entertainment Weekly about what happens. And what I loved, the thing that the book opens with that scene in the special edition when they're pulling down Emperor Palpatine's statue. And you're like, okay, it's over. Right after that happens, and right after it falls, Imperial ships come in and start blasting everybody. And then you're like, okay, that's the world we live in. So that's still, but the people on the floor aren't just like a scared crowd. They start picking up pieces of the statue and start chucking it at the ship. So it's pure chaos now. Pure chaos, and then you go into where Wedge is going to go on this planet. And what I loved is that the woman who actually captures him is Admiral Ray Sloan, who made her first appearance in A New Dawn.
Yes.
So there you go. You're gonna, and that's going to be, I guess, between 5 and 10 years, a 5-10 year period.
Separation there.
So I love the fact that they're taking characters from books that we learn, because there's something right there that I'm talking about. Even if you read Aftermath the first time, are you going to be lost to learn who Ray Sloan is? No, but we get a special kind of, well, that's cool, because we knew her from there. So I love the story so far, what I'm hearing, and the fact that they're doing that, and this is going to spawn into a trilogy. Do you like what you're hearing so far?
Well, yes, I do, and I was kind of excited to hear that we're going to see Wedge. But if I remember right in one of the excerpts that like Wedge at some point gets captured and they're marching. What really stands out to me here, and they need to take out the Imperial Handbook and rewrite a thing. The moment you get a prisoner, shoot him in the head right away. Empire wins. You just do that the moment you capture Princess Leia. You do that the moment you got Han.
Right.
You do that the moment you got Chewbacca.
Get your information somewhere else.
Yeah, you do that the moment that you had Luke. You do that the moment you had... Because at some point or another, all these heroes of the rebellion, at one point, were in Imperial custody.
Right.
And the Imperials seem to have a really high moral code that they don't like to mistreat their prisoners.
Right.
Well, so then are they really all that bad? So, I mean, I don't know.
Well, I'm curious also to see who's going to be the big bad in that, because Admiral Ray Sloan, even if she's the antagonist in the entire book, she's not the one. Whoever this dude is in Uprising.
Yeah, the one we seen in the video game thing going,
Uprising,
the liars are saying the Emperor has fallen, but he's probably the guy.
I want to know about that guy. I want to learn more about him. I think that he'll ultimately be the one that we learn about. But Mark, is Aftermath something that you might actually read?
Yeah, I mean, look, first of all, if you're ever being attacked by a spaceship, do not throw bits of a statue at it. Probably not going to help your cause that much. It was, when you initially described it to me, it sounded like a bit of a bummer, because I'm such a huge Return of the Jedi fan. I want that celebration to carry over for a few months, and it seems like the next day we just got the crap kicked out of us. You know, it's like we're trying to party because we just blew up this huge thing, and now nope, there's just more Empire. Right. Like, is there going to be a guy that comes into the office and is like, okay, guys, I'm going to pitch an idea for Death Star number 3, but it's going to square. So you know, it does sound interesting.
Call ourselves the Borg.
Yeah. I mean,
it'll be great.
I'm excited about the fact of a very small fraction of the Empire still remaining, and maybe they have to go into hiding like the rebellion started out. And so now it seems like the Empire is just still a dominant force in the universe, which I'm like, well, I thought we kind of got rid of that in Jedi, and that they had to work to build themselves back up a little bit. But you know, obviously I want to know what happens, because I like Star Wars.
Maybe instead of reading it, maybe what if Kristian and I acted out? What if you sit on the couch in the lounge and we kind of acted out?
If you guys acted out, but you got to do the voices. I'm like a little kid. You got to do the funny voices, or else I'm not falling asleep.
All right, what's next?
Can't get that out of my head. Speaking of kids, the images from the Hasbro presentation at Comic-Con are online, and it's just always one of the coolest booths you could possibly want to visit at Comic-Con, is seeing the new toys that Hasbro has in store. Some of them from The Force Awakens, some of them just cool Star Wars characters. Kristian, which ones are you taking into the bathtub with you?
I'll tell you, my favorite ones are actually what I believe is going to be Finn's TIE Fighter, which we see crashed into the ground. They showed it in that special video. Bless you. We got Rex. Love Rex. I think that's a great one to see where he's going to wind up, and I love that they're focusing more on him. And Luke and Kanan. I mean, I really love a lot of these things, but those are the ones that stand out. John?
I think the rebellion is in trouble because it appears Santa Claus has joined the Empire. But anyway,
Or are they in trouble? Or are they
well, the
lucky?
one I didn't know if it was a new one that was released, but I remember one that a lot of people were talking about was the First Order Stormtrooper
Oh, right, the
that they had
black
that sold out really quick.
Yeah.
And then I got home from Comic-Con and was waiting there for me was my wife with his big box.
Oh,
I'm
did
like,
she get it?
ooh,
Oh,
yeah, it's
that's
in my
awesome.
office right now.
That's
Actually,
great.
it's
It
very
won't-
very cool.
It won't be by the end of this.
Yeah, so that was my favorite one.
Yeah, Knapsack and I went to a breakfast, and they had the Black Series, the First Order Stormtroopers on display there, and we're just like eating pancakes, looking at it like,
that's so
I don't want to go
awesome.
up against that. They look like they got good aim.
That's great. Okay, so how about you guys? What are some of your favorites out of those images? Which ones do you like the best? I'm sure there's gonna be a lot of lightsabers comments. All right, Mark, 2 left. What do we got?
All right, enough kid talk. Let's talk Legos, okay? So Poe Dameron's X-Wing and the Millennium Falcon Lego sets have both been revealed, and it's immediately at the top of my Christmas list. You know, I mean, you look at how intricate these things are, and what a great partnership Lego and Star Wars have had for years. So you knew they were going to crush it when Star Wars has a new movie to unleash. And my God, this looks like so much fun to play with.
Of course, for me, the first thing I see the toys for a second, then I see who's Tazu Leach?
Yeah.
Who's Kenju Glenn gang member? Like that's the first thing I see. Who are those guys? Because I love old Han with the gray hair, amazing. Chewbacca, Finn, Rey, BB-8, but then these 2 people there, they're part of the Millennium Falcon crew. So who are those guys? What do they have to do with? I mean, is that who Han's rolling with now? Is Han rolling with gang members? Is he back to his old smuggler ways, or are they holding him hostage? I don't know. It's pretty cool. John, what do you think?
I think they look great.
Yeah.
I really do, and I want it all.
Yeah, well, I know.
I really do.
Yeah.
I'm sitting over here in my mouth salivating.
Right.
I want all of them.
What about the new characters?
No, that's fascinating. Are they now? Have you heard that confirmed that
No,
they're part
no.
of his crew?
No. I only assume it because they're part of the Millennium Falcon set.
Right. I don't know. I mean, Han doesn't strike me as a guy who would roll with a crew, per se. You know, there's him and Chewie. It's always been that way. But I mean, that makes total logical sense that maybe that's part of his crew now. I have a feeling from the trailer that maybe he has been without the Millennium Falcon for a while.
Yeah.
And that he just got it back.
Right.
But who knows? I mean, I am curious. One guy looks like Bishop a little bit, but other than that, I am very curious to see what these guys turn out to be.
You loving it, Mark?
Yeah, I thought the gang member kind of had a Snake Plissken vibe the first
Yeah,
time
yes.
I saw it. But I think that, yeah, because you're right, in that trailer, it looks like Han was holding a gun at somebody, and maybe it's those guys. But Star Wars has also always been genius at giving a cool, detailed name to the guys that most people just throw away as background characters. Like when they're doing the bounty hunter job interview in Empire Strikes Back,
Yep.
and you see the guy wearing no shoes. It's Bosk. It's like, we all know it's Bosk, but
Right.
a lot of other people just like, oh, yeah, that guy with the long toenails. Like Tazu Leach could be the name of a main character in The Force Awakens, or it could be a dude.
Right,
You know,
right,
and the
right.
fact that they don't even name the other gang member, it kind of doesn't give me a lot of hope for Snake's future in this world.
All right, last one today. What do you got?
We are going to cap off with the new one that you sent me
This
that
morning.
I did not click on yet. So
Oh,
we're going
great.
to talk about the 2 new Inquisitors that have been introduced, and my God, do they look menacing. Now, we got a tease as to one of the Inquisitors, but the other one, the male one, looks brand new to me, and he looks fearsome even more so than the original Inquisitor that we already met in Rebels.
Right.
Kristian, are you even more scared of these ones?
I really like the fact that they have these 2 brand new Inquisitors. We did see a glimpse of the dude on the left here in the trailer for Rebels.
Right.
But we never saw the face of the woman. I always assumed that was going to be the Mara Jade type character
Yeah, me too.
that was going to pop in there, and she still might be. I mean, maybe she was overtaken by the dark side. You remember there's that scene that they added in for the ABC version where Darth Vader's telling the original Inquisitor
Yeah.
that to seek out the children of the Force and either kill them or turn them to make them work for him. And this looks like 2 of those kids. Now, the rumor going around, floating around, and this is on Star Wars 7 News as well, too. They are pitching the fact that maybe that this is, and a lot of people are, that maybe this is Barriss Offee from the Clone Wars, who had a feud with Ahsoka Tano. Now, if you look at, and Wendy had actually pointed this out to me as well, too, is that if you look at pictures of Barriss in the Clone Wars, it's different
markings.
It's different markings
And different eye color. But that, sometimes people turn to see if their eyes straight.
Their eyes can change. There could have been stuff that happened down the line. You never know. But there's still, or it could be a brand new character. I am still thinking it's going to be the Mara Jade, Sarah Michelle Gellar crossover there too. But do you buy into the Barriss Offee thing? Do you think it's Mara Jade, or is it a brand new character?
I don't buy. I think it's a brand new character. I was totally on board that the new Inquisitor was going to be Mara Jade, just under a different name.
Right.
And that would then later be revealed as her true name is Mara Jade.
Right.
And all us Star Wars fans would go, oh! But apparently that's not the case. That dude, though, can we bring up that last picture that had the dude there? That dude looks so freaking great because he looks like something out of a feudal, like a samurai war film, you know? I look at that guy. Like, the other Inquisitor, looked really cool, but he also looked like the Inquisitor's accountant.
Yeah.
So, like, he counted all the coins and kept the schedules and the books.
You're
for the
spending
Inquisitors.
too much money at Fudd
This guy's the muscle. This guy's the muscle.
This dude looks like somebody, nope, I'm not dining here tonight. I turn around and walk out. I mean, that dude looks awesome. She also looks very cool. I'm curious, it looks like Ahsoka Tano and the Inquisitor are actually fighting together.
Yeah.
Although that's a weird image to see, but I'm just kind of fixated on this dude. I mean, that dude just looks awesome.
Yeah, it looks pretty great. Ellis, what do you think?
Yeah, but you know, women, even if they're fighting each other, they're going to stop and pose for the picture if somebody's taking it. Then they'll get back to fighting each other, so they could still be locked in combat there. Both Inquisitors, I think, look incredible. And, I mean, it's what the Inquisitor said right before he died. We assumed he was talking about Darth Vader, and I think he was when he said that it's something even worse if you kill me. But he also probably knew there were other Inquisitors in the pike. You said he looks like an Inquisitor's accountant. He also looked a little long in the tooth. And these look like they're fresher Inquisitors. They're younger, they're still in the gym, they're lean, they are ready to get their punch cards started, you know? So it's an exciting time if you're an Inquisitor.
Well, it also adds into, there's two things that these Inquisitors are going to be able to do, because the initial concern that you had with Darth Vader coming back that ultimately turned out to not be a concern was, how are they going to be able to take on Vader? And the answer was, they aren't.
You can't.
But by Palpatine going, send the Inquisitors, that means, okay, they're going to be able to outdo the Inquisitors here and there.
They can fight the Inquisitors.
And we go,
There can be
okay, they
battles
outdid
there.
the Inquisitors a little bit. But they also said that this is like the Empire Strikes Back of Rebels. So I wouldn't be surprised if one of these characters, and it could be in the 5th episode, it could be in the season finale, winds up taking out someone that we know. And it could be Rex, it could be one of the main characters. They're going to cause some kind of damage, or they're not threatening. They got to take out somebody.
Want to hear a wild theory? Ahsoka turns.
You think Ahsoka turns to the dark side?
Wild theory, totally wild theory. But man, if they wanted to throw us a curveball, something we didn't see coming.
Yeah. I just think they're leading up too much to Vader fighting Tano.
I mean, maybe she turns and then goes back to the light side and bleeding the back. I don't know. I mean, I think she dies this season.
Yeah,
I
me
do.
too.
I do think she dies. But how does she die? What happens to her between now and then? Wouldn't that be a kick in the teeth, though? if
It
she
all
turns
points
at
to
some point?
more ominous things happening as we go further down this Rebels pipeline. Like, it's not going to be a happy ending for a lot of these characters that you're starting to love. So
Because
prepare
when
yourself.
Star Wars starts, it isn't a happy situation.
No, it's not.
All this is leading to a bad place.
Really dark.
And it's really going to be cool to see how they take us there.
And to answer your question before we go here is that as far as why Ahsoka Tano is with her, it's because if you look at it, it looks like they just have all the characters or brand new characters that are going to be a part of it. Because Ahsoka Tano just showed up at the end. She's kind of a brand new character they focus on, as well as that's Rex's gear in there as well too. So there's probably they have in the front they have the good guys and the bad guys are in the back.
Good point. Good point.
Okay, guys, that's it. That is Collider's Jedi Council. This has been a lot of fun. Like I said, we couldn't get to Twitter questions or address the council this week. We'll be able to do that next week. I'd like to thank the council here. First, Mark2D2, where can I find you?
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at 5150. Ellis, I have so much to catch up on in life, but I got to put all that to the side because I have so much to catch up on when it comes to canon. That takes a priority.
Obi-Jon Kenobi, where can the rest of the council find you?
You guys can find me daily, Monday through Friday, of course, on Collider Movie Talk here on Collider Video. And you can follow me on Facebook and on Twitter simply at John Campia.
And you can find me at Kristian Harloff on both Twitter and, Facebook as well, too. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, the whole nine. But make sure that you guys hashtag Collider Jedi Council. Put that out there. We will go through the Twitter questions over the week. We'll take your questions. And the main thing is make sure that you guys comment in this video. Of course, hit like. But things that we've talked about, share your opinions. That's the one thing that we really like to hear is what you guys think about the topics that we're covering today. Make sure you do that and share. Share with other friends about Star Wars. You know Star Wars fans? Tell them about the show. Get them over here. That's it. Thank you so much. Really appreciate it. May the Force be with you.